I'd like to open the meeting of the Warwick County School Corporation Board of School Trustees, December 18th, 2023. Please rise and join me in a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3 on the agenda is patrons' concerns, and we do not have anyone signed up at this point. So we will go ahead to number 4, which is a presentation, book challenge, policy and procedures, Director of Learning, Mr. Jason Fisher.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I will be discussing the Warwick County School Corporation policy on challenges to school library materials this evening. And before I get started, I would like to thank everyone's efforts on this in policy and curriculum in helping us craft this policy to comply with House Enacted Act 1447, which was passed by the Indiana General Assembly and signed into law on May 4th of 2023. So at this time, I'll begin. I hope everybody can see our screen all right. And anytime you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Section 1 of Chapter 5.5 of House Enacted Act 1447 required all public schools and charter schools within the state of Indiana to do 3 things specifically. Number 1, it said that as a corporation, we must establish a procedure or a policy to prepare a catalog of all materials that are in school libraries. And tonight you will be hearing me use the word materials often because that is the way the law was worded. It is true that over 95% of materials, I believe, would be books in our school libraries, but this could refer to DVDs, periodicals. If there's any encyclopedias still living out there, those would count as well. So in order to comply with the law, we had to establish a catalog of materials. So at this time, I would like to show everyone on the board and in our viewing public just an example of that from Castle High School, if I very well may. So Castle High School, here is what we have done. Later in this presentation, I'm going to show the public and anyone viewing this by streaming tonight and all board members on how you can access this. But right here is a collection of our materials in the Castle High School Library. You can see at the top, there is 214 pages. There is roughly 60 titles per page, which would equate to over 12,500 materials within our library. As I said, I made a reference to encyclopedias. If you take and can look here, you will see, I don't know if anyone's eyes are that good, but does everybody see 12 Angry Men, the DVD? Anybody remember that?
I remember it, yeah.
Yes, so you can see that we are including DVDs into our collections here as well. The law specifically stated that for each school, we had to have a catalog of materials in our library. So this is accessible to anyone who would want to view this under our parent tab, which I will show you later. The second part of House Enacted Act 1447 in Section 1 was we had to establish a procedure to allow any parent or guardian that had a student in our schools or a community member that resides within the boundaries of Warwick County to submit a request for removal of material. So that was the second portion of this policy. And I do want to emphasize that it is not only for parents or guardians, it's for any member of the community, provided that they are a Warwick County resident. And the third portion of this is we had to create a procedure or policy that would allow for a response and an appeal to a request for removal of materials. So once a parent or guardian would submit a request for removal, or a member of our community that resides within Warwick County, we are by law, we have to provide them a response to that request. And if the individual that submitted the request for removal is not happy or in disagreement with that response, then they may request an appeal from the governing body. Request for removal of materials, and I am so sorry that that is blinking in and out, but a parent or guardian of a student enrolled in the school or community member that resides within Warwick County may submit a request for removal of materials in the school library if it is obscene, or that is obscene, as described in Indiana Code 35-49-2-1, or harmful to minors, as described in Indiana Code 35-49-2-2. So I am not going to read the entire policy, but just provide a brief summary of it for us, because we have already had 2 readings of the policy at our October board meetings. But for our members of the audience, our procedures are posted on the website. But if in the event that there is a parent or guardian or member of our community that wants to submit a request for removal, the first step would be to have a conversation with the school media specialist, the librarian, and then the principal. At that point in time, if an agreement cannot be had, then that parent, guardian, community member may submit a request for removal of materials to the school principal. Now, a couple things happen at this point. Upon receipt, the school principal would inform members of the review committee at that school. Each school, by law, is required to have a review committee. We just couldn't have a review committee, a Warwick County School Corporation review committee. Each school had to have their own review committee. And as our policy dictates, it will be 5 members on this review committee. It can be teacher or teachers, the principal, media specialist, librarian, but it shall be, and it must be, at least one member of the review committee shall be a parent from a student enrolled in that school, and the other member of that review committee will be appointed by our superintendent of schools to serve. Within 15 days, we have to do 3 things as a review committee when considering one of these requests. Number 1, we must review the statute that I just cited on what is obscene or harmful to minors. Number 2, we have to read, view, and or listen to the material in its entirety to determine whether it meets the definitions of those statutes of being obscene or harmful to minors. And we must issue a written decision to the individual that requested the removal of material. We must issue a written decision to the school principal and to the superintendent of schools. At that point in time, if the individual that submitted the request for removal is not happy, they have within 10 working days to request an appeal to our superintendent of schools, Dr. Redmond, and then the board will take that appeal in consideration at the next board meeting and make a final ruling on whether the challenged material would stay in circulation or it would meet the statute requirements of being obscene or harmful to minors. That is a wrap-up of our policy and on section 1, but something I would like to do is section 2 of the law in chapter 5.5 requested, or didn't request, but it mandated that all schools share this information on each school website. So we have to share the catalog of materials. We have to share the request for removal of materials, and we also have to have an appeal form. And as opposed to going through these individually here on the slideshow, I'm going to take you to Castle High School and just show everyone where we can find these things. We've made it really accessible for our members of the community or our parent and guardians to find this material, and if they want to complete this process. I know a lot of times when we're looking at our websites, We have stuff on there, and it's very difficult to find. So if I am going to use Castle High School, because I used that for our example as it related to libraries, and I do apologize that you cannot see this, but if you would go to the parent tab, and for everyone in our audience, all of this information is housed under each school website under the parent tab. And under the parent tab, we have library catalog, which I'm not going to go to that because I showed you that earlier, but we have the Warwick County School Corporation Book Challenge process, and it will take you to 3 different links. It has the policy of challenges to school library materials, which we just briefly went over. And then here is the request for removal form, which is right there. You can fill it out, and you will send the request for removal initially to the school principal. And then the final one that we can find on the Castle website is the appeal form. And the appeal form, if someone submits a request for removal and they do not agree with the written determination provided by the review committee, they have 10 working days to request an appeal, and they will submit this to Dr. Redmond, and the governing body, which is the board, would take this up at the next board meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher.
I got a quick
Yes, sir.
question. So, Mr. Fisher, every building, every school has a review committee, correct?
Yes, every school within Warwick County would have a review committee.
And when will those be established? Is there a deadline or something like that?
Well, part of this will be established as we start receiving requests for removal of materials at each individual school.
Okay. So you don't anticipate having the review committee established prior to any request for removal? Or do you think you'll have them established and then you'll wait for any potential requests?
I would say that we would want to get these established
Yeah,
before we had requests for removals.
Right.
Sent to our schools.
Okay.
But sitting here this evening, I cannot guarantee that all schools right now have that review committee established at this point in time.
do you think that's just anticipated maybe by the end of the school year, this school year maybe, that they'd all be established, or?
Oh, I think we're going to have those established in
Prior to
January.
that.
Because our policy is now in effect, being the governing body, the board has taken it up and approved it. But by January 1st, 2024, it goes into effect throughout every school, corporation, public or charter
Yeah.
in the state of Indiana.
So at that point, it's prudent to have them in place, correct?
Yes, sir.
The review, okay.
Yes.
And then, so we go through this process, and so the review committee will review it,
Mm-hmm.
and they're looking at the state code, right, to say, is it offensive or harmful by this manner, right, by the code?
Yeah, we are looking at Indiana statute.
Right.
For the people in our audience, Warwick County does not have their own policy on what they feel is harmful to minors or obscene.
Yeah.
And we are going to be using Indiana code as it relates to obscene or harmful to minors to make that determination. And that is the 2 criteria that we will be judging any request for removal.
Okay, so the playbook's been given to us, we just have to look at it,
Mm-hmm.
and then in the event of an appeal, then it comes to this board,
It
correct?
does come to this governing body.
Okay, and at that time, if we have any other questions, we could get our attorney involved to look at those statutes, right?
Yes.
If we needed
If you
to.
have questions, yes.
Yeah.
As to how it relates to that
Okay.
standard, yes.
Yep, yep.
I have, so one clarification. If one school deems a book offensive or in violation, does that apply to all schools or only that school?
It does not say that in policy, but we would assume that that would be the case. Yes, if we have something that would go before the review committee, and it would, a review committee at a school, and it is deemed obscene or harmful to minors, and therefore taken out of circulation, I would think that we would have a discussion on that material possibly being removed at all of our schools.
Just clarify.
Even though technically, Cliff, please
Right.
clarify, technically by law, it would only have to be removed at the particular school based on that particular school's committee, correct?
That's correct, and I think it's a case-by-case situation. You're gonna have some material that may not be appropriate for an elementary school that may be appropriate for high school. So No, just because one school deems it to be obscene or harmful doesn't mean it applies corporation-wide.
And I'm just asking, is there a procedure whereby one school would deem it inappropriate, another school could decide that maybe for them it's not?
Well, there's not a procedure where one school's determination affects any other school.
Okay.
So again, it'd be a case-by-case situation. If this board determines, that could be something that this board determines if they want to on applying corporation-wide or just limited to that school. But I don't think we should have a policy that just because one school says it's harmful, it applies corporation-wide.
I'm just trying to understand.
Mr. Fisher, on the school's website, the catalog of library materials, that's searchable, right? You could type in a
There's a hard
title.
copy there. When you go to that library catalog, what it pulls up is a hard copy of all of the materials listed within the school. And
So
according to-
they couldn't search for a particular title or an author?
No, I believe you can, because it's OCR'd, so you can Control F and search through the PDF.
Oh, okay,
So, yeah.
okay.
And it's alphabetical order, correct?
It is indeed in
Yes.
alphabetical order.
And Mr. Fisher, when you were showing us this information, it's under the parent tab.
Yes.
But if you're a community member, you can still access all of that just because it says you have to be a parent or whatever, or it's under the parent tab. Community members also can
Okay.
access all of that material. I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Yes, that is correct, and we just housed it all under the parent tab, so it would be concise and easy to locate.
Thank you.
The only other comment I have, I do think, thank you guys, the policy committee and everybody who's working on this. We're kind of just doing what the state says, right? The only thing I would think from Cliff's comment about just consistency, I could see where something for an elementary student is not necessarily appropriate, or the other way for a high school student. However, I would think that if it's not appropriate for one elementary, it's not appropriate for the other elementary. So, that may be something that the policy committee could talk about and think about, even though it's not mentioned in what we have to consider here. Maybe think forward on, do we need to amend the policy that says, look, if we go through it once at this level, elementary, middle, and high, then it's pretty much considered consistent. Because that could be pretty choppy, right?
Yeah.
If we start doing good for one, not the other at certain levels.
We've had a lot of these discussions
Yeah.
at our district level and with our full administrative teams. And so, we can't predict or play the what-if game tonight because it's just difficult until we go through the process of,
Yeah.
when and if that time comes. But we have had this discussion about what that might look like in practice if at a particular grade level at one school, would we be open to the idea of saying, if it does in fact deemed, that we need to remove it,
Yeah.
then we would definitely have that conversation about
Okay.
for that particular grade level, then we could revisit that at that time.
Sounds good.
And one other thing that the policy committee discussed is, that's one reason to have the superintendent have her own designee as well.
Yes.
So you
Yeah.
can
For
have
the
consistency of
Oh, that's a good
conduct
point.
with the
Okay.
corporation.
Good.
Yeah.
That might be something we add to our strategic planning. When we get to that point, that we can have that discussion if we've already had one or two of these, so we have a little bit better idea of what's going on.
Could be. Not the other one.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Jason.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you all.
Okay, moving on to item 5, consideration of routine business. Dr. Redmond.
Consideration approving of the following routine items: the minutes of the school board meeting held on November 27th, 2023, and the claims and docket for December 18th, 2023. I recommend the board approve the routine items as presented.
Motion to approve routine items.
We have a motion by Mr. Eigner, second by Mr. Baker. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item 6, consideration of items for board action. Dr. Redmond.
Agenda item A, consider approving salary corrections. In your board packet, you will find a request from myself, Dr. Abby Redmond. 2 corrections need to be made to the list approved by the Board of School Trustees on November 6, 2023. I recommend the board approves these corrections as presented.
I make that motion.
We
Second.
have a motion by Mr. Mosby, a second by Mr. Baker. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item 6B, consider approving settlement agreement. Dr. Redmond.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilhelmus. In your board packet, you will find the settlement agreement and release between the Warwick County School Corporation and the Warwick County Teachers Association. This settlement agreement resolves the legal dispute between the parties as further described in the complaint pending before the Indiana Education Employment Relations Board. The settlement agreement was prepared and approved by the board's attorney. I recommend the board approves the settlement agreement as presented.
I move to approve the settlement agreement.
I have a motion by Mrs. Glover,
I'll
a
second
second by Mrs. Metzger. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item 6C, consider contract for legal services with Mr. Cliff Whitehead. Dr. Redmond.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilhelmus. In your board packet, you will find a contract for legal services between Warwick County School Corporation and Zemer, Stamen, Weitzel, and Shoulders LLP through its partner, Mr. Cliff Whitehead. The contract provides that Mr. Whitehead and his firm will continue to provide legal services to the school corporation under the same terms as the 2023 contract. I submit the contract for legal services for the board's consideration and approval.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Franz, a second by Mrs. Glover. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 6D, consider approving resolution 2023-13, rainy day fund transfer. Dr. Redmond.
Thank you. In your board packet, you will find a copy of Resolution 2023-13 approving the transfer of unused and unencumbered balances from the Operations Fund to the Rainy Day Fund. I recommend the board approves Resolution 2023-13 as presented.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Mosby, a second by Mrs. Glover. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item 6E, consider granting approval for annual 2023 calendar year-end transfers of appropriations. Dr. Redmond.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilhelmus. By statute, every fund must end the year in the black. In order to meet this requirement, it becomes essential to transfer appropriations among funds. I recommend the board grants the business department approval to make the necessary calendar year-end transfers of appropriations as presented.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Baker, a second by Mrs. Metzger. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item 6F, consider signing certificate of appointment. Dr. Redmond.
In your board packet, you will find a certificate of appointment form appointing Kathy Bartelt as a library board member at Newburgh Chandler Public Library. Kathy is currently serving on the board. However, her term expires December 31st, 2023. Should the board consider Kathy Bartelt's appointment, the certificate of appointment will be signed and filed with the county. I recommend the board approves this request as presented.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion by Mrs. Glover,
I'll second.
a second by Mr. Eigner. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item 6G, first reading of proposed policy update 1200, board member compensation. Dr. Redmond.
Thank you. Dr. Walter Lambert has brought to the board an updated policy 1200 board member compensation. This policy has been revised with updated language. Tonight we will conduct the first reading of the updated policy. A second reading will occur at the board meeting on January 8, 2024, at which time the board may choose to take action. I will just read in summary, and just as a reminder, the community and the public can always see the full proposed policy on our website under the school board tab, and there's a folder there that states proposed policy, and you can see it in its entirety. Okay, so in summary, this policy establishes the method for a board member to obtain the payment to which the board member is entitled as set forth herein. Each board member shall be entitled to claim compensation for attending the following: each regular school board meeting, each executive session of the school board, each meeting of any committee established by the school board and on which the board member serves, and each work session. Again, the full policy can be, the full proposed policy, I should say, can be found on our website if anybody would like to read it in its entirety. So no action is needed on that tonight.
Item 6H, consider approving tag, piece, and EAM distributions. Dr. Redmond.
Yes, thank you.
A lot of
Lot of
acronyms.
alphabet soup there. In your board packet are the outlines of the descriptions and the parameters of the tag, piece, and EAM monies provided by Mr. Todd Armstrong. I recommend the board approves tag, piece, and EAM distributions as presented.
I make that motion.
We have a motion by Mrs. Glover,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Mosby. Is there any discussion?
I'd like for her to explain to the public what tag, piece, and
Sure,
EAM.
sure.
stands
I have my
for.
notes
So
ready.
everyone
because I
knows.
was
Got
expecting
your
it.
notes?
Yes. So TAG is the Teacher Appreciation Grant that we receive, and that amount this year will be in $568.39. We are required to, we're only allowed to give, there has to be a 25% difference between employees who received effective versus highly effective. So we felt like, as a district, that we don't like that difference, and we want our employees to be able to receive an equal amount. So that is what the piece money is. So that is basically creates a situation where our employees, if they receive highly effective or effective, they end up receiving the same dollar amount. Okay? And then the EAM, that is our employee appreciation money, and that is in the amount of $431.61, and that goes to all of our employees. So certified and non-cert, part-time and full-time, who were hired before October 28, 2023.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item 6I, consider accepting donations. Dr. Redmond.
In your board packet, you will find the following donation requests. Tecumseh High School, $1,000 donation from Roberta and Dwayne Deitch to the THS Nurses Fund to be used for supplies. From Castle High School, a $2,000 donation from Jim and Donna Scales Family Charitable Foundation to be used in the athletic department. And at Chandler Elementary School, a $500 donation from Hayhurst Auto Center to be deposited into the Chandler Caring and Sharing Fund. These funds are used for the needs of students and their families. I recommend the board approves these requests as presented.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Baker.
I'll second that.
Second by Mrs. Metzger. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Consideration of personnel recommendations. Dr. Gresham.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilhelmus. The Human Resources Office has the following business to bring before the board tonight. Agenda item A, consideration of employment, certified positions. Jennifer Stoops, special education teacher at Castle North Middle. Jennifer Raper, temporary special education teacher at Linville Elementary. Lori Dormeyer, temporary special education teacher at Elbowville Elementary. Ruth Cooper, pre-nursing teacher at WPCC, starting with 24-25 school year. And Stephen Wilson, civil construction teacher at WPCC, starting with the 24-25 school year. And the following support staff positions: Taylor Freeman, temporary job share program assistant at Newburgh Elementary. Jamie Morrison, temporary job share program assistant at Newburgh Elementary. Kylie Campbell, temporary program assistant at Boonville High. Christine Allen, temporary program assistant at John H. Castle Elementary. Cherish Siffler, temporary program assistant at Castle North. Excuse me. Beth Vandenson, temporary program assistant at Castle High. Eric Ante, summer musical director. Jeff Thornton, summer musical vocal director. Justin McCullough Haddix, summer musical technical director. Autumn Ruthgerber, temporary program assistant at Yankeetown Elementary. Elizabeth Whitlow, temporary program assistant at Linville Elementary. Allison DaCosta, temporary program assistant at Oakdale Elementary. Christopher Lampkin, temporary program assistant at Oakdale Elementary. And LaDonna Kelly, temporary program assistant at Logue Elementary.
Motion to approve certified and support staff positions.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Aigner, and Mr. Mosby, was that you?
Yes.
Okay, we have a second by Mr. Mosby. Is there any discussion?
So how many students do we expect to have at Pathways in the 24-25 school year?
I have not seen the list of our newest students who have gone through the application process, and I'm not sure, Mr. Fisher, do you know if those notifications have gone out yet? I know Mr. Girth had planned to do that before the students leave for break, which is tomorrow.
I believe those are going to go out tomorrow to notify students who are going to be accepted in this program to the Pathway Center next year.
Yeah.
But I can assume from this it will be growing.
Yes, yes, so you could see we had to add an additional health science teacher, and then we will also have a civil construction pathway for next year. So we'll have all of our existing students who come back for year 2, and then we'll have a whole new crop of year 1 students next school year.
Awesome.
So once I have numbers from Mr. Girth, then we can definitely share those
Okay,
with you.
thank you.
Okay, Dr. Gresham, I think we're at transfers, aren't we?
Did we call both? Okay, we have both.
Did you call
Oh,
for
I'm
that?
sorry.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I
sorry.
didn't mean, I'm
We have a
sorry, my
motion.
bad.
We have a motion and a second. No further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Now we'll move on, Dr. Gresham.
Thank you very much. Agenda item B, leave requests. Leslie Meyer, fourth grade teacher at Sharon Elementary. Dorothy Doss, 3.5-hour cafeteria employee at Castle High. Elizabeth Roll, counselor at Boonville High. Cindy Tooley, language arts teacher at Tecumseh Middle. Tricia Manis, social emotional behavior assistant. Kelsey Hubert, third grade teacher at John H. Castle Elementary. Doretta Rootman, program assistant at Oakdale Elementary. And Carolyn Barnett, 6.0-hour cafeteria position at Newburgh Elementary.
We have a motion.
I move to approve the leave request.
We have a motion by Mrs. Glover.
Second. Go ahead.
Second by Mrs. Metzger. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Dr. Gresham.
Thank you very much. Agenda item C, transfers. Tricia Arn, 6.5 hours at Oakdale Elementary to 6.0 hours at Oakdale Elementary. Agenda item D, other. It's reported incorrectly on the November 13th, 2023 board minutes that Mindy Kiko had resigned. She has taken a leave of absence for the second semester. Sheila Goodrich, physical therapy assistant, assistive technology coordinator, will be going from 4 days a week to 5 days a week. Calvin Stevens, multi-responsibility position, has filed appropriate paperwork to return early from an approved leave of absence. And Colin Schuler was reported as a resignation from Castle North Middle School. It should have been Castle South Middle School. Agenda item E, report of reassignments. William Wilder, assistant principal at Louisville High School, has requested and has been approved for a reassignment to the classroom, starting with the 24-25 school year. Agenda item F, resignations. Joanna Peacock, 4.5-hour cafeteria position at Castle North Middle School, resignation effective November 28, 2023. Jamie Rathgaber, program assistant at Yankton Elementary, resignation effective December 19, 2023. Madison Godow, program assistant at Linville Elementary, resignation effective December 19, 2023. Angie Mellinger, program assistant at Castle High, resignation effective December 3, 2023. Tori Brown, temporary program assistant at Oakdale Elementary, resignation effective December 8, 2023. Amanda Duckworth, program assistant at Castle High, resignation effective December 22nd, 2023. Brandy Rocker-Guess, ABS program assistant at Sharon Elementary, resignation effective December 12th, 2023. Natalie Ellison, 3.5-hour cafeteria position at John H. Castle Elementary, resignation effective January 1st, 2024. Mary Scheller, 6.5-hour cafeteria position at Castle High, resignation effective December 12th, 2023. Michelle Garrison, 3.5-hour cafeteria position at Boonville Middle School, resignation effective December 19, 2023. And while this might appear like a really long list, remember we did have 4 weeks since the last board meeting. And finally,
It is a
agenda
really
item
long list.
G, retirements. Mike Witten, principal at Boonville High School, retirement effective June 19th, 2024.
Thank
And
you.
if I may just take a moment in regard to Dr. Witten's retirement, I just wanted to take a moment to extend a big thank you to Dr. Witten for dedicating 27 years of his life to Warwick County. 21 of those years were at Boonville High School. Mike has graduated over 4,200 Mighty Pioneers and hired over 100 caring employees at Boonville High School during his tenure. I actually had the great pleasure of working alongside Mike for several years when I was a guidance counselor and he was principal at the time. We made a good team because he's very math-minded and I'm very language arts-minded. And so when we were approaching problem-solving and tasks, it was great because we could see things from different perspectives and really helped us make good decisions. But more than anything, what I learned about Mike during those years is that he's a good man who cares about people, his students and staff, the community, and certainly his family. And I know he has grandbabies that he loves to talk about and share with us. He has certainly made an impact on thousands of people during his tenure in Warwick. I know, like many others who have worked with him, that I'm grateful that we've had time together with Mike here in Warwick County. I know also that we will rely on Mike, his knowledge of Boonville High School, and his expertise in assisting with a smooth leadership transition during second semester. But I also want to make sure that we use second semester to celebrate Mike during his last semester at Boonville High School. And I'm also very excited to learn and eager to hear what Mike has planned after June 2024 and his future plans, both professionally and personally. So Mike is not in the audience this evening, but he may be watching. So congratulations to Dr. Witten, and thank you for your service to Warwick County Schools.
Absolutely. Moving on to agenda item number 8, reports. Dr. Redmond.
We do not have any reports tonight. I do believe you had a couple of
I
announcements.
do, so
Yes.
I'm going to move on to agenda item number 9, other board business. First of all, January 8th will be our next personnel meeting at 6:30 here in this building. And then January 9th will be our construction combined with WPCC at 7:30 at the admin building. And also tomorrow morning, we will have the construction WPCC meeting at 7:30 tomorrow morning at the admin. So it sounds like a back-to-back meeting time, so. Reminder, the next meeting is January 8th, and on January 8th, we will need to elect officers for the 23-24 school year, and we also need to make sure that we have a legislative liaison for ISBA. The committees, we usually do that the second board meeting in January, and if you're interested in changing or being on a different committee, let me know and I'll see if I can get that worked out for you. It is a short legislative session this year, and Terry Spradlin from ISBA sends updates every Friday, so he has asked me to make sure and remind you to please review that information. Sometimes they call for action, and we need to get on that pretty quickly, especially with a short legislative session. Also, the annual State House Day will be February 6th, which is on a Tuesday in Indianapolis, and they really are asking us to really try hard to get 2 people to go to that. So if you're interested, travel is paid for through ISBA, so we need to work on that. So be thinking and see if your calendar allows you to go on that. I think that's all I have. Okay. Any,
January 9th at 8:30, Administration Building, the Transportation Special Ed Committee will be meeting. That's a Tuesday.
Policy and Curriculum Committee will meet January 8th, 5:30, here at Central Services, unless there's a work session. And then it would be 4:30.
Do not have a work session for that meeting planned at the moment.
Dr. Redmond had a quick thought. I'm on the Kaiser Community Advisory Board, and Carrie Flugel, and she's been through Alcoa and now Kaiser, and they're really doing a lot of work with Drew
They are.
at
Yes.
our Pathways facility. So I think it'd be good, maybe, I would like for the whole board to see how much they're integrating, they're leading our community partners. So she said she'd be okay with coming and doing a report or something to the board.
Oh, fun.
So maybe, or a work session, whatever. So I'm just gonna tag you're it, and you tell me what you think would be good, what your preference is
Okay.
for, your schedule, the rest of the board. And she's willing and ready, and they are just really running with, they have kids over, they have
Yes,
kids over all the time.
they have been a great partner to us so
Yes.
far and have really just been so beneficial.
Yeah.
It's a true partnership in what we wanted for, our students to be able to take that classroom experience and see how it applies outside of classroom experience.
Yeah.
They're sending us a lot of guest speakers. We're doing a lot of on-site visits. So, and we have other partners doing those things as well. But you're correct. They have really, quite frankly, they have presented a scope and sequence
Yes,
of,
yeah.
of what they're doing each quarter with our students. And it's
Yeah.
been just a great partnership so far. So
Yeah.
we can definitely work on having Carrie come and speak.
That'd be
like we
great.
did with junior achievement a couple weeks
That,
back.
yeah, that'd be
Yes,
great.
Yes,
Yeah.
we'd be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further information? All right, seeing none, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.